Hey guys, what's going on? Steven back again, and I'm back with another 40k video from Luton. So, I hope you guys enjoyed the last Luton video I did, which was about Engron and the Butcher's Nails. That was a very interesting story, man. Engron didn't really have much of a chance, you know, kind of feel a little bad for him. It is what it is, though. So, anyways, the topic for today's video is Imperium, Tyranids, First Contact, and the Battle of Macragge. The Battle of Macragge, that was the starter box set that was out when I first started playing and working for Games Workshop. I remember right when you walked in the door, we had a small little, 2x2 table with the box set all set up. We were supposed to, ooh, wow, my camera just went way out of focus. There we go. Yeah, we had a small little 2x2 table set up, so anyone who walked in, we'd offer them, a quick game. It was supposed to be like 5 minutes or less, just to show them, what the game is about and stuff like that. We'd fudge the rules, wouldn't go into, all the rules and stuff like that. It was just a quick demo game. But, yeah, the Battle of Macragge, good old box set. I remember it. Little rule book and everything. Good times. All right, so anyways, on to the video. Here we go. All right, I hope the audio is okay. It's getting louder. I hope that's good. Ooh, cool picture. What is that? It just looks so badass. Look at that. I think he's missing an arm, but he's still holding the banner. Ocean World, Imperial Research Station.
The Imperium of Man first made contact with a new xenos species at the planet of Tiran. Imperial explorators, who are Mechanicus tech priests committed to exploration and exploitation of new planets and regions in the galaxy in the name of the Imperium, discovered a strange phenomena where planets previously recorded as lush and verdant were now barren husks. Not even a single cell of life remained. While this disturbing fact was immediately reported, the slow-turning cogs of the Imperium's bureaucracy was, as with most things, likely to raise not much more of an interest than the lift of an eyebrow. Stranger and more deadly things are likely occurring at almost any time than a planet simply just becoming a dead rock. Still, as the explorators would continue to report these strange dead worlds, a fleet of xenos previously unrecorded would be drawing ever closer.
Insert Jaws theme here.
A survey craft returning from studying these destroyed worlds encountered a strange cloud of unidentified objects entering the edge of the system. After taking some damage from strange organic mines in the edge of this cloud, the Imperial ship would manage to survive back to an Imperial base orbiting Tiran Primus with the disturbing reports. Days later, the Xenos fleet would now descend from the skies down to the surface of Tiran Primus. The main base on Tiran was a heavily fortified bunker system designed to withstand the ferocious storms of the ocean world. Coupled with the fact that its location on the edge of Imperial territory made it a likely target for Xenos attacks. So 4 immense planetary defense lasers were situated on the outpost, along with void shield generators, which are a form of gravitic energy field. It is typically utilized to defend super heavy vehicles and infrastructure. Often you see these used by starships and titans in the Imperium. Void shields displace ranged attacks by distorting space-time around the point of impact. The outpost was then further supported by an array of other weapon systems, including autocannon and las cannon, as well as various heavy bastions and bunkers.
Makes sense.
The defence complement itself was also formidable, with 3 full navy wings and a force of Skitarii, as well as finally an entire infantry regiment of Imperial Guard. A standard deployment for any frontier planet that had been deemed the standardised force strong enough to repel most enemy assaults. The alien horrors began to fall from the skies in an array of colours and strange storm-racked skies. The Imperial ground gunners attempted to engage and prevent any of the invaders from making planetfall. But just as suddenly as they'd begun, this attack from the strange unseen species would withdraw. Is this all they have? What an easy victory, mused the Imperial defenders. This ignorant overconfidence would soon be tragically misplaced. Major Varnak ordered a fleet of Imperial Navy cruisers to continue to harass the withdrawing xenos as to make sure of their retreat and assumed broken morale. But upon following this command, the Imperial ships would quickly discover, as they pushed through the spore mine clouds that masked the xenos fleet, that they would see not a few, not even 100 of the strange bioships, but in fact thousands. Having suffered minimal, if any, losses from the initial planetary engagement, swarms of xenos ships would seize upon these easily stunned prey as they rounded on the Imperial ships. The first to be physically shredded was the Emperor's Fist, ripped apart by small invasive organisms spewed forth from a larger alien vessel. As the others were similarly cut to pieces or ripped apart by tendrils, the now absolutely panic-wrought crew in the last surviving ship were able to dispatch a warning to Tiran. While in the process of doing so, Genestealers had been unleashed into the ship's interior, efficiently and brutally slaughtering the entire crew complement in minutes, while in the background other ships were already being absorbed into the fleet's bioreserves. The Xenos would now return to the orbit of Tiran, and there would be no respite this time. No withdrawal. Many thousands of their mycetic spores rained down to the planet's surface, with the Imperial outpost defences having little success in preventing them from doing so. As the ocean around the outpost began to foam and boil, the Imperial defenders looked on baffled and more than a little concerned. What kind of horror was this attack? Soon enough their answers returned, as aliens the likes of which had never been seen before sprang from the watery gestation. Imperial Guard would quickly turn to their instinctive training and even were successful in repelling the first waves of attack by these savage alien creatures. No doubt bolstered by the fact that among their number were Guard veterans from the Imperial death world of Katashan, a nightmarish jungle planet. The lower bioforms of the attacking Xenos were little match for most standard Imperial weaponry, and the Gaunts and Genestealers would be significantly decimated. Things though began to quickly unravel as one of their planetary defense lasers would fall silent. It was literally choked and clogged by a mass of Xenos gargoyles that had been instructed from the hive mind to force themselves down into its barrel and inner workings. Now the larger bioforms like Carnifexes would begin to appear, ripping through defences and destroying further weapon installations. The Xenos were turning the tables, and it was now only a matter of time before the guardsmen would be horribly dismembered and then consumed. The outpost soon is overrun by the alien horrors, and its heavy bastions and bunkers smashed to pieces or enveloped by this highly aggressive Xenos. Only Tiran's command bunker remained, and it was already beginning to buckle and crack under the weight of unrelenting damage being wrought to its exterior by huge aliens smashing their way inside. Major Varnak saw there was no hope. This was the end.
Distress signal. Send it out.
The few remaining Imperial Guard in Skitarii would fight down to their very flesh and bone before these savage invaders would seethe and flow through the command bunker's corridors. Major Varnak would pray to his Omnissiah before sending a data codex deep into the lowest levels, specially constructed as a kind of black box for the outpost. This data would be their legacy to the Imperium of Man, its records providing essential information for the Imperium and humanity.
1 year later. someone's going to investigate the
As
planet.
Krypton approached the now dead, sterile world, he discovered that it had been ravaged of all life, even its oceans and atmosphere. Searching for the standard Imperial data codex that is secured in such a catastrophic destruction of an Imperial outpost, what he found was more disturbing than he could have imagined. And seeing the videos and accumulated data of the Xenos assault, Krypton would immediately leave the planet to communicate and convey the severity and imminent danger posed by this new and horrific alien threat. A horror he would subsequently name Tyranids. The planet of Tiran would hold the morbid honour of now becoming their official designation. Inquisitor Krypton attempted to use his astropath on board to project a vision of his discovery to the Imperium's network, only to discover that this was not possible. Something was preventing the astropath from communicating. This, of course, was the psychic disturbance caused by the Hive fleet. So he instead proceeded to the next nearest Imperial planet of Thandros in the hopes of establishing communication, only to discover this world had also been ravaged and was now a sterile, dead planet. As is often the case with planets in the Imperium, sometimes entire worlds are lost without anybody even realizing it until years later. Eventually, after successfully establishing communications, he was ordered to proceed to the planet of Macragge, the Space Marine chapter homeworld of the Ultramarines. The alien fleet would be designated Behemoth. Thanks largely to the information gathered from the Tiran data codex, the Astartes and Imperial forces on Macragge were now able to formulate a plan in its defence. The chapter master Marneus Calgar quickly ordered its already immense, powerful defences strengthened. In addition to the existing Imperial ships in orbit, more arrived daily, including massive strike cruisers and Ultramarines battle barges. One thing was for sure, the Tyranid threat would have a far more challenging battle to be fought here than at Tiran and Thandros.
Right, because
it would not be until a month later that the Tyranids would finally begin to assault Macragge. Over 1,000 of the Xenos ships had been present entering the system and had now already ravaged the garden world of Prandium, a former lush paradise, a garden world, a glory to behold, and now a broken wasteland of death. Even with Krypton's warnings, the first-hand accounts of the previously lush planet being turned to dead rock, Calgar was taken aback by the devastation of the Jewel of Ultramar. In Calgar's preparations, he would form 3 massive armies on the surface of Macragge, and as the first spores would begin to fall, the powerful Astartes regiments would begin their stand against the alien horrors. Calgar himself had formed the largest of these 3 armies and would carry out repeated rearguard assaults to wither and crush the Tyranid swarms. But the unrelenting weight and force of the Tyranids could not be suppressed, even with the power of the Ultramarines on their home planet. On the planet's surface, Titans stalked the land, obliterating any alien swarms in their path. The ferocity of the Tyranid assault was something never seen before by the Astartes, and some even saw the colossal Titans be dragged down to the ground before being brutally torn to pieces by the blurred forms of Claw and Chitin. First Company veteran Ultramarines would lay waste to these foul Xenos horrors, but deep inside their bunkers, holding every piece of ground until it could no longer be held, but slowly retreating inside their fortress. The attacking Tyranids would be relentlessly slaughtered like an ocean of alien bodies, exploding, disintegrating and being vaporized by the unwavering but slowly withdrawing Astartes. As the fighting became ever more brutal and desperate, with much of Calgar's defense forces now slaughtered, one of the final battles would be fought on a location known as Cold Steel Ridge. The previously masterful rearguard army of Calgar here would find their match, as the hive mind had learned and adapted to his battle tactics. To compound the situation, the Tyranids would deploy a bioform later classified by the Imperium as a Swarm Lord. This massive creature was one of the final forms to lead assaults on Tiran and Thandros. Using the power of the hive mind, the Tyranids' previously mindless, animalistic, furious assaults now became viciously focused, even tactical. Over the remaining hours, the Swarm Lord would launch attacks again and again, killing scores of auxiliary troops in the most savage and horrific ways imaginable, no doubt in an attempt to horrify and break the human enemy. Torn apart, flayed, penetrated, dissolved, eaten alive, inside or out, the carnage continued on and on until the powerful Astartes began to appear outmatched by this previously mindless horror. Sensing victory, the Swarmlord along with Tyranid warriors thrust into the fight and engaged Calgar himself. As the Ultramarines circled to aid the chapter master, Tyranids lying dead sprung to life, evidently feigning death in a suppressed state by the Swarmlord so as to launch unexpected attacks on the now compromised Ultramarine defenders. Calgar would be torn and savagely injured by this assault, and the remaining forces were forced into retreating to the battle barge Octavius. One of, if not the strongest defences of Macragge was its polar fortresses and massive ground weapons that fired high into orbit, obliterating the xenos raining down onto the planet. The Tyranids, now being highly aware of this concentration of firepower, proceeded to rain down thousands more spores in this polar area, and Tyranids would now begin to appear in even greater numbers, and the fortresses were soon seething with alien horrors. With few options available, Calgar had to trust his planet-side Astartes would handle the tidal wave of xenos now engulfing their bunkers. So Calgar would instead turn his attention to the Hive fleet, determined that if Macragge must fall, no other planet would.
Take out the ships.
Despite the Imperial fleet and the remaining planetary defences engaging the orbiting bioships and destroying hundreds of them en masse, many more remained, and wave after wave would assault the ships in space and the surface of the planet. By the time the Tyranids were deploying their 12th wave of attacks, the orbital defences of Macragge were now essentially annihilated, and so the Tyranids would even further intensify their attacks. Calgar would attempt to seize on this by assaulting their ships in orbit. The Tyranids were spread out in their attempts to envelop the planet, and then they would start to now withdraw their bioships, pull the engaging Imperial space vessels away from Macragge so as to be unable to assist the forces on the ground, especially around its polar bunkers and outposts. What the Tyranids could not have foreseen, though, was the arrival of the reinforcing battle fleet Tempestus, catching them now in between two Imperial fleets. But even so, the Tyranid Hive fleet was far from outmatched, and likely both fleets could have been potentially destroyed were it not for the supreme sacrifice of the mammoth Emperor-class battleship Dominus Astra. It would plough straight into the heart of the Hive fleet and sacrifice itself by detonating its warp drives, subsequently creating a warp vortex and dragging itself and the entire Tyranid fleet into total oblivion.
Damn!
Calgar's remaining forces rounded to return to Macragge and save the few, if any, Astartes forces that had managed to hold out in overwhelmed polar fortresses. Contact with the First Company veterans had now long been lost as the Tyranids overran the polar outpost, and Calgar, concerned by this, deployed the 3rd and 7th Companies by drop pod to the polar regions. As the Marines burst from their pod deployments, the scenes that met them were beyond belief. Hundreds of thousands of shredded and compounded Tyranid bodies lay piled as far as could be seen, and huge craters existed where plasma weapons and Titan reactors had gone critical, pocketing the surface of the land. Linking up quickly with any surface survivors, they pushed down into the depths of the outposts, clearing any xenos they encountered. The 3rd Company, though, on landing was far less successful and came under heavy attack as soon as they made planetfall. Many hundreds of Tyranids sprang from the dark outpost entrances to engage them, but heavy fire from the Marines and Thunderhawk gunships overhead crushed them and drove them back into the darkness of the reinforced outposts. On entering the darkened corridors of the outpost as the 7th Company had done, the 3rd began to notice how walls and structural elements were dripping with mucus, and it seemed that in many places solid material appeared to be breaking down. They would lay down heavy flame units through the corridors to clear their advances, slowly progressing deeper into the bunkers. As the 3rd Company continued to burn their way into the darkness, every step crushing alien chitin and acidic blood splashing everywhere, they slowly entered the deepest areas of the bunkered outposts in the polar region. And it was here that they would finally find the last remaining 1st Company veterans. A single circle of Space Marines in Terminator armour laying slumped back to back, having been savagely ended by the Xenos horrors. There were no 1st Company Ultramarines remaining. They had been killed to the last man.
Damn. They went out fighting.
After the nightmare that was the battle for their chapter world, they faced the huge task of rebuilding their chapter, notably the veteran First Company, which had been so brutally obliterated. This task would be bequeathed to Chaplain Cassius, who would request to Calgar that the new First Company veterans be drawn from the ranks of those who had survived the tyrannic assault, as only they could understand this threat and the consequences of a tyrannic war. These elite veterans make up the now reformed First Company of the Ultramarines. The battle for Macragge is a bittersweet victory for the Ultramarines, having been successful against such a horrific enemy, but also suffering such devastating losses. The names of their fallen brothers are commemorated each year, and their sacrifices remembered throughout the Ultramar system.
Oh wow, well at least they...
And so the Tyranids would not be seen for over 200 years, until without warning in 993 of Millennium 41, a new invasion fleet would appear. Hive Fleet Kraken, which would now engage with simultaneous attacks on planets throughout the system. Eventually this assault would also be repelled, but the Tyranids would again be detected by Inquisitor Kripman in 997 of Millennium 41, only 4 years later. Kripman was able, by burning out Astropaths, to discern this new fleet Leviathan's intended course of attack through its targeted system. But despite some initial defensive successes, Kripman would order the act of exterminatus on the world of Cordelis, the next planet in the Tyranids' path, so as to reduce their ability to increase their biomass. Despite Imperial Navy objections, Kripman would succeed in carrying out his exterminatus to the planet and its population with virus bombs. This catastrophic level of civilian deaths and his lies to the Ultramarines would enrage them and other Imperial forces. Worse would be to come though when Kripman would order the single largest self-inflicted atrocity in Imperial history, when he would order a system-wide scorched earth tactic by using exterminatus on every planet within the reach of Hive Fleet Leviathan, so as to effectively starve them of biomatter. He would later, due to these actions, be denounced as a traitor to the Imperium and Carta Externis by his fellow Inquisitors. But Kripman still held loyal allies within the Astartes Death Watch, and the final fate of Hive Fleet Leviathan was far from over. The Tyranids and their ongoing tyrannic wars would change the Imperium forever, but there are many who believe that their invasions of the galaxy have only just begun. Further examination of Imperial records after the Tyrannic Wars had begun revealed disturbing facts. Facts that suggest the Tyranids had been around for a much longer period of time, and that predatory creatures like the Katashan Devil and Fenrisian Kraken are actually ancient descendants of Tyranid hive fleets, perhaps long since abandoned or forgotten by the Hive. Records of the Ordo Xenos of the Inquisition have suggested Tyranid contact as far back as Millennium 35. Bioships of Tyranid configuration were also discovered on an ice planet after Imperial Guard was sent to deal with an orc threat there. Tyranids would burst out attacking the guardsmen sent, but they could not understand how this was possible, as no Tyranid ships were in orbit of the planet. Eventually they realised that as long ago as 7,000 years, a full Tyranid hive ship had crashed into the planet and remained dormant ever since. The prospect of it reanimating and sending out psychic distress calls is something that they could not allow to happen. Eventually the Imperial forces are able to destroy the hive ship by enabling massive volcanic eruptions which consume and destroy the trapped ship and all its horrific inhabitants. But these events suggested that the Tyranids had been present even earlier than Millennium 45, perhaps anything longer than even 1,000 years prior, and it also penetrated further into Imperial space than was previously thought. The prospect of other deliberately hidden or preemptively placed hive ships was a greatly concerning realization. But it's also possible that these earlier fleets were defeated and repelled by another race like the Eldar. The Tyranids are one of the most severe threats to not just the Imperium, but the entire galaxy. And even though they have wrought terrible destruction through the first fleets that have appeared, a much worse possibility exists, that so far the Tyranid hive fleets are just initial tendrils. They are really scouting parties of a much larger and exponentially more dangerous main fleet, as yet unseen, still travelling through the void
Flood of living blades and needled fanged mouths. Wow. I want to search. I want to see, what does it say? I'll go back. Battle of Macragge. This is from the wiki. First Tyrannic War, Tyranids, Hive Mind, Swarm Lord, Marnius Calgon, First Captain, entire Hive Fleet. Jeez. It doesn't give numbers. Strength Defenders, Ultramarines Chapter, yep. Praetors, Imperial Navy, casualties for the attackers, unknown, in the billions, entire Hive Fleet exterminated, casualties for the defenders, entire Ultramarines First Company, heavy losses in the 3rd and 7th Companies, heavy fleet losses, outcome, Hive Fleet Behemoth exterminated, Ultramarines First Company destroyed, Ultramarines raise the Tyrannic War veteran units. Oh, so it doesn't give numbers. I was kind of like, oh, like, you know, billions of Tyranids against 250,000 Ultramarines or something like that. It doesn't give numbers. I kind of like the numbers. But, yeah, so there we go. Yeah, so that didn't give me much of anything. But, wow, that was absolutely insane. Just imagine how creepy that is. Just this army, just this force just coming in out of nowhere, not expecting. All of a sudden, like, this planet goes silent. It's nothing, you know. Shit happens, you know. It is what it is. And then just finding out it's like an army. It's a swarm. That's insane. And then learning how that's how Tyranids actually got their name, was from that planet, and that Inquisitor giving them that name. So that was very interesting. Yeah, I can't believe about you know, that Inquisitor exterminating those planets and stuff. Like, couldn't you at least like get some of the population out? You know, even if you can't get all of them, at least try to get some of them out at least, you know. But well, apparently he got consequences, and you know, things happen because he didn't try to do anything. I mean, if you got time, at least, you know, try to get some of the people out, you know, save some of the people. You don't have to destroy everything right there. If you get a chance to save some, try to save some at least. But yeah, that is really cool. And then that ending, not knowing what else could be out there, you know, and it's just a scouting thing for whatever else lurks out in the darkness. You know, there could be many other things out there. That'd be some really cool models, some all new models and stuff like that. That'd be pretty cool, you know, if something else just showed up. Or I don't know. I always wanted to play Tyranids, but a little too expensive, you know. You needed a very, very big army, and it was very expensive to play Tyranids and Guard, you know. That's why I always liked watching people who did play Guard and Tyranids play, just because, you know, it just looked very cool. But it was like, damn, dude spent a lot of money on like this army, you know, like all these Gene Stealers and Hormigons and Termagons and Carnifexes and Hive Tyrants and Lictors and stuff like that, you know. It's like, he spent a lot of money on that army. But it was just always fun to watch, just seeing all the models on the table just look so cool. And, you know, when Gene Steele is getting into close combat and stuff like that, like, oh, we're gonna be here a while. That's gonna be a lot of attacks he's got to roll, you know, with all these Gene Stealers. I don't remember what it was at the time, 2-3 attacks each or something like that, something ridiculous. Yeah, but always fun. But yeah, that was really cool. That was another awesome video. I liked hearing this story of the battle. Alright, so anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, hit that thumbs up button. That'd be awesome. Remember, feel free to subscribe to my channel. Follow me on social media. Links are in the description box below. Join my new Discord channel. There should be an invite link down in the description box. Come over there. We can talk more 40k. You can suggest videos for me to watch. You know, whatever. That'd be awesome. And yeah, just leave me all your thoughts and comments. And other than that, yeah, just stick around. More videos are on the way. And I will see you guys next time.